Where's my ship?
Oh, your thing isn't started yet. You're getting ready. Okay.
Say what?
Your thing isn't starting yet. You're still getting ready.
What do you mean?
Your thing hasn't started yet. You're still getting ready.
Oh no, it's streaming.
It says start.
Where?
Start event.
Oh shoot. Oh yeah. Me forgot. Yeah, I forgot to hit the start. Oh man. If we get a few people, we might pause the printer or put something in front of it. I don't think it's that obstructive, but it's pretty loud.
What's pretty loud?
The 3D printer.
Okay, come on.
Here, it's okay. No, wait. Let's just wait more than a couple.
You can wait either way, though. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so I kind of have. We'll call wave impacts. Okay, so these are all going to be things that are put on a high pass. One of the hardest sounds to source is actually ship walla. It's kind of just unreasonably hard. I think of all the things I've had to find, it's men working in a no, I'm still in like on like a ship or boat kind of setting. You know, it's like you kind of look for specific commands and things.
Tall ship, though, specifically, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're that's the thing you're going to hear is people, you know, making commands to do work and stuff like that. So I'm sure probably somewhere out there there's a pack that addresses this, but yeah, I mean, surprisingly, I was able to find some more general, like, naval commands when I was working on Nebulous, but they were a little more shouty, you know, just by the nature of being the Navy. You know, which is great, you know, for like a savage, like, space pirate crew. But, you know, as long as you can't really understand what they're saying. Abandon the sheep. I don't know. I think Abandon the sheep was probably the pinnacle of really bad ship sound effects. He couldn't even say shit. Abandon the sheep.
Really good. Sometimes the bad ones are the best ones, though. Yeah.
Hey, Voltron and Jess. I'm just kind of starting this by thinking through all the things I might hear in a pirate ship cabin. Outside, inside, underneath, all the things. I always feel like when starting these things, it's like it's pretty easy to just throw a bunch of sounds in a bucket. But when you think about each layer, you're kind of setting yourself up really well.
Right.
Abandon the sheep. I'm probably, if you guys think of anything else, I'm kind of just listing them here in this notepad. Outside sounds, water sloshing, seabirds, people walking, sails, rope, ship sounds.
I have seabirds, actually,
Yeah, real ones.
yeah. No,
Okay.
not the birds.
I was gonna say, it's very quiet in here for birds.
Recording, not the bird.
Okay. So,
Yeah, it's funny. There's so many bad sounds that when you're trying to look for good ones, it's like they collect. You know, the ones you remember that are really funny, they're bad. And it's like one day we're gonna have to find a use for all these really hilariously bad ones if they're so bad. Like the Jetson spaceship keeps coming up, always something like that. Ben and Sheep.
yeah. I mean, I can barely talk about sourcing for this kind of thing just because it's kind of a treacherous thing. I mean, it depends on really kind of what your budget is. You can get by a lot. Like, I have Epidemic open, which is it's one of the libraries that we use, and it's pretty common. You can get a personal license for I think $15 a month, and commercial for I think I want to say it's $25 a month. I could be wrong about that, but it's okay. There's the free option, which is freesound.com, but I think .org, but I feel like the danger with free sound is that it's free, but you still have to kind of pay attention to the rights. What you're looking for is Creative Commons, and this is something I actually never see people talk about, is that if there's a sound here, it's not that it's just free. There's different levels of free. You have Creative Commons, but then you have public domain. But something in the Creative Commons, you want to look for Creative Commons no attribution if you don't plan on crediting every single sound effect. So this one, for instance, oh, come on. This one, for instance, you have to still credit the provider. So I don't see a lot of creators actually following through with this. A lot of them actually like to know too. I don't think free sound really gives you this option, but I remember some of the older ones, like I want to say it was like CC Mixter, or I can't remember which one. It was either Gemendo or one of the ones that was more popular years and years ago. You can actually reach out to the artist and tell them where it was used. That's kind of disappeared.
Sad. That was really cool.
Yeah. So it is a huge hassle. And some of them still, will be Creative Commons, but you still have to ask permission. So it's a hairy area where I think the general assumption that this whole site is free, but that's only halfway true.
There's also the attribution thing.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the chat's open if you want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Revisit. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Creative Commons attribution. What I'm saying I don't see is the attribution component of it. Is people just polling the asset but not doing the attribution. So just something to look out for. I don't think anyone's going to honestly come at you, but I think it's just the kind of the social kind of aspect of it. There's a third one I'm going to actually open, which is Envato Elements. And forgive me for just 1 second. Yeah, so Elements is $30 a month. And it has a lot of crossover I've noticed from specifically the Pond 5 source. Pond 5 is, I think, a similar price, but you get a limited amount of assets. And this one also, includes stock video and footage. Stock stock video and images and stuff you can use, but it's got a pretty big sound effects bank. So I'm just gonna leave these open in case I need them.
I think they just ate a bunch of other companies or something.
What, Envato?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, their stuff it tends to be lesser quality, especially in the sound effects kind of variable quality. Like you find really good creators on there, but then you also find abandon the sheep. Okay. So I have kind of a basic idea of what I want to put in here. So I'm going to go ahead into the project. This is my test. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to divide the Reaper project out into the kind of varying locations, the deck sounds. And I mean, big thing is with this, I'm not really teaching you a process. I'm just kind of pressing buttons and doing it using the way I would do it. So if you have questions about the way I would do it, and this isn't technically how I would do it. Usually when I'll do stuff like this, I'll break it out with a slightly different hierarchy. So usually what I'll do, and I'll go and do this because it's good practice for myself. So I'll create several tracks for the different kind of components of the mix, and obviously this is just ambient, so a lot of the standards are going to be missing. So we'll need Foley. So Foley will be anything that's really direct from talent, in which we're not really going to have talent, but I'm going to make that channel anyway in case I want to like add a silent character to the scene. So there's Foley and effects. Effects I kind of consider like in-world kind of sounds that aren't really directly effects coming from the talent in the scene or the subject. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. The other kind of levels will usually include well, really there's kind of, okay, so when you're dealing with these libraries, at least I find often you'll kind of have a raw effect, and this is something that's coming from a design kit, or it could be something custom recorded, but it doesn't have any processing. But often, especially if you're looking at bigger design kits, you'll find a lot of sound effects that are really, compressed. They already have a lot of processing. Sorry. I'm trying to remember what I call this because I don't usually group it this way. So I'll usually just call it special effects. There's a few other things that I'll commonly do which aren't going to be in this mix. But just in case. Is anything special? I'll call it like a sound design special. So something like a whoosh or transition. Something that's not necessarily part of the scene, but that's more, ethereal or higher level. There's a few more, but we'll just stick to what we're going to use in this particular scene. So I'm going to throw deck sounds under effects. So if you're not familiar with Reaper, it lets you kind of just do this, like stack tracks into one another, and it automatically creates subgroups that way, which is super duper awesome. So it just speeds up the process so much. I'm going to go and create a few more things that I think I'm going to need. So I'm going to create my few reverb sends. So let's say we'll call it outside verb. I'm just going to make a, just for the sake of being organized, I'll just use this as a folder. going called? Cabin verb. I might. Yeah, I'm just gonna call. Doesn't necessarily. No, I'm gonna skip that one. Let's not get too special. And just for my own brain, I'm gonna make these a color. I'm not gonna do anything with those right now. So back to what we're doing here. I'm pre-thinking through some routing really quick. So I'm going to do something here. My other big caveat is I did most of my learning in Pro Tools and only picked up Reaper. In the past few months, I have actually been super happy with it. Also noting that I am incredibly blind. Let's see. Cool. So these are in cabin sounds. We're going to link up our cabin verb for deck sounds. These are going to actually go, these will get our cabin verb as well because we're going to be hearing them from inside the cabin. And actually we can just go and do this and just delete these. Foley will copy this over. Sound effects will copy this over. Cool, now these are wired to receive whatever I set up here. I'm just gonna throw something on here. I don't really like working dry. It kind of makes it hard to hear what you're doing. And for this, we're just gonna start for small spaces. I like to use Valhalla Room and just start with the stock Smallwood Room setting. It does an okay job kind of starting to paint a space. Valhalla Room is not free, but it is one of the cheaper verbs and one of the more popular ones. It gives you quite a bit of tools. It's $49 US, and yeah, it's got a lot of control in it. I think for a $50 VST, it kind of beats a lot of what Waves puts out there, and I think that's a pretty popular go-to is Waves. I think Supermassive, which is also put out by Valhalla, is either free or cheaper than that. But yeah, so this gives you kind of the most basic control you would need, and comes with quite a few presets. And I mean, frankly, I haven't even really bothered with a lot of the features it kind of brings to the table. You can really spend a lot of time, adjusting the kind of wobbliness of it and stuff like that. I think people really use it mostly for drum kits and stuff like that. For setting up like basic ambiances, it does a really good job. There's another one I might skip that one. I don't know if we'll get into convolution reverb right now, but this does a decent job. Okay, so it's cabin verb, outside verb. Outside verb will probably use something a little bit bigger. I'll go ahead and stick to Valhalla and this is really just going to be to blend a lot of the outside ambient sounds we're going to find. I'm just going to turn the mix down to 50% starting out, which is still quite a lot. but just to kind of help get the idea across, I'm actually gonna bypass it for now. Okay, so I'm gonna start kind of just shopping around. Oh, actually, real quick, let me just get into my cabin verb. So I pulled up that image of a cabin just to kind of get some basic ideas, and it's not too shabby. It's not too big. I kind of guessed that this might be about 15 foot across, or 5 yards or so, and 10 yards or 30 feet deep, and I hope I'm doing that math right. Low ceiling, everything wood except for this window, which we're probably not really going to account for right now. But so I'm just going to go into here. So assuming you're sitting in the middle of that space, etc. I feel like that might be a little big. Let's call it. Let's have that. Okay. And turn that down. Usually I find with Valhalla to get it sounding realistic. Keeping the mix super low. Oh, you know what? We're throwing this in a sub though. So I'm going to just crank it all the way up because I'm going to control the amount of the reverb on the channel. So usually around negative 30 is kind of the max of what I like to do. I'm gonna go and just keep copying my work over. Okay. I'm probably gonna clean up some of that routing once I get my brain together. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start going into my libraries and see what I can pull. I'm gonna start with the outdoors. So let me find my notepad. Okay, so we have, this is just gonna be off to the side. And I'm gonna start building the deck sounds. So the seabirds, like anything we might hear outside. And so I'm going to start running. One thing I really like about Reaper is it's, I don't know what you call this, the Media Explorer. It just really kicks the sound base's ass in Pro Tools, mostly because you can find a source here and you can actually just highlight the portion you want. And so it becomes really nifty in adding these to your scape. So I'm going to add this to our deck sounds folder. It's going to throw it on here for now. And then let's actually make me a track. And we are going to throw it in there. And that's kind of a sloppy way, I know, but I'm just being really sloppy here. So and I don't love this particular source, so I'm going to do a better job actually listening to these. So I don't think we need kids. Yeah. For our purposes, these will probably be okay. Because we're not trying to do anything super fancy. Yeah, I'm just gonna pile them in here. Good enough for now. Let's try to find. Let's see what kind of footsteps shuffling. Oh, buddy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so these are terrible. So this is And I don't feel like generating these. Okay, cool. We're gonna look at an epidemic and just see what we can find. And one thing I don't like about epidemic is their search. Whoops. So we're not hitting our target here. So I think what I want to use this for is to have people walking just above the cabin. And so I'm kind of looking for some heavier footfalls. Here we go. So I'm going to pull this guy. And let's just throw him. Just so I know where to find this. And everything comes zipped up. Here we go. So now I can just easily drag this. Yeah. Here we go. And these, I already know I'm going to do a few things too. So I'm going to throw an equalizer on them. And probably our bass. So this is just beefing up. And probably another one. Let's just add a smack attack. Yeah, so smack attack is kind of like a fattener for drums for the most part, but it's kind of helpful for adding percussive elements. There we go. So even before we add our I'm gonna get it screwed up, so I'm really avoiding saying, you know, your fare of high cuts, low pass, all those things. I'm gonna drag this equalizer here to copy it, so we can kind of see the start of the effect. High cut, thank you. And so this is going to kind of create the effect of this actually being above the cabin or outside of the cabin. So we're going to have that basic element. And you can see as I crank up the verb, it's starting to sound like you're hearing it from a space. Okay, so, and I'm going to turn down our verbs. yeah, I'm gonna get to our ship sounds. And so there might be some extra chatter or something we'll hear. So let's see what walla we got. Hang on, that's... I know what some of these are, so I'm not gonna start clicking through. Yeah, I may not have. Let me throw up epidemic. I'm just gonna try to find some menwalla because I know there's better stuff out there. Oh, just. Let's see. Just for the sake of what we're doing here, I think we're gonna, let's skip this component and we'll come back to it if we feel like we really need to hear any external voices. Let's move on to our ship sounds. Whoa, that's not a word. And so a lot of the library that I'm pulling from is going to be a combination of epidemic and Vado and Boom library. Sorry, I'm moving my cat. She just like wants this microphone. So that's pretty great. I'll pull this in. I'm gonna put this in our, let me listen again. That's not super designy. Okay, let me see how that lives with our deck sounds. These are pretty aggro. So we're gonna chill out our walking so it's not constant. We'll add some panning and stuff like that to it too, so it sounds like people walking overhead.
Turn down a low pass and walking a little bit too.
What are you saying to me?
Just make the low pass a little lower.
What am I doing? Hello. What in the world? Hang on. I broke it. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a minute, and I'm gonna save this. About did the ultimate no-no, which is to not save. While I'm at it, I'm gonna throw, actually I'm gonna throw it over here. I'm gonna throw a compressor And then, cool. So let's take a look again. We have, I'd like to get some more wave impact sounds. I was thinking about this earlier, and I think the sound that I'm looking for is really kind of that sound of water impacting something. I may or may not have that specifically, but I might be able to refer to something that sounds similar. Some sound like a bucket or something like that being hit. And so if I can't find what I'm looking for in a minute, I might get creative. Let's look for... These are sci-fi waves. We don't want that. Let's go and look for a water bucket. And most likely, I'm not going to have what I need. Yeah, I definitely don't. So let me just browse Epidemic again and just see what I can find. Actually, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. See what they have in the way of a boat hole. That could be useful. Yeah, this sounds aggressive. Well, we'll pull it anyway. I think this sounds water on bowl. Yeah, I apologize. The watermark's freaking awful. Fun fact, I've been in the unfortunate seat of using watermark music that has made it out into a final video. Not on purpose, but it happens to the best of us. This sounds a little more like it's work related. Yeah, it may or may not have been like a corporate event or anything like that, but we'll just not talk about it anymore. This went to the wrong location, so I'm just gonna drag it under the right.
Did they not know?
Hmm?
They didn't know?
They didn't. They're like, I really like that vocal element and the music. Oops. I've had better moments. I keep forgetting to use seconds. Yep. Premiumbeat.com. I think that was the one that made it into the Dell thing. It was great. Okay, where are we? Okay. What was the shortcut, Edward, for adding a new track in Reaper? Oh wait, Control T. I just need to speed that up. So I'm gonna give this a similar spanking to what I did the, whoops, that's not at all. Again, bear with me. I just basically learned Reaper. Okay. This is not doing what I want it to do. Clearly, we're not getting that boat oomph. So even if this was, I'm going to treat this a little bit differently. So deck sounds get that overall. So I'm going to make another sound effect group here. And call it whole. I tend to get pretty gritty in my organization of these tracks and how they get treated. So we don't need, I'm also going to throw some color on this just for my own. Okay, so here we go. So clearly we're going to break those up. And so I'm going to work on these until I get them sounding, you know, how they should. And part of the issue with them is just that they're incredibly thin. So let's make them more sporadic. So I think what we want is that really startling oof, you know, kind of. And obviously we're not getting that. So even though we have a substantial booth here. So there's a tool, I'm gonna get rid of this and I'm gonna add, this is getting into kind of special territory where you don't really need to have something other than an EQ to do this. But sometimes you find yourself in a position where you just kind of like want a fancy button to press. And one of the fancy buttons I like is called Uber Loud, and that comes from Boom. So the alternative to doing it this way would be to add a crap ton of compression and bass. But in this case, we're just going to kind of use this push button. Let's go into 2-band here. So this is going to, actually I'll make a 3-band. Divide those out into highs, mids, and lows. Cool. So we're going to go into our EQ again. And get rid of those. And this is pretty sloppy work. Okay, so I still want it bassier. So we'll go and bring our bass back. Actually, I can just drag it over from here. Okay, let's keep pulling out. Whoops. Let's just too much kung fu. And I'm still, there's some other tools I can use to get this punchier that just get kind of not really what we want. And I'm actually gonna make a... It's probably gonna yell at me for doing it this way, just to kind of see what happens if I change the tone of it here.
Watch the level thing.
Huh?
Levels, watch it.
Let's move our compressor over to our deck sounds. So we can get a little more custom in our compression. Cool, so we're getting a little closer. Cool. Well, I'm gonna come back to this in a minute. Just gonna bring this. I'm just going back into our source to see how, because there's some extra squishiness in that might be making it not quite the right. I'm gonna go at this one because it's a little more terse and doesn't have a lot of that extra, just to see what happens. And again, I'm gonna kind of just break this up a little bit. Okay, and just for the sake of moving on and then possibly coming back to this later, I'm gonna, whoops, hello, move on to another component. So, and I think I'd like to actually get a few more water sounds from the hole. So let's just kind of go back into here. Actually, let me do better search terms here. My sound effects library, only some of the sound effects have really good meta and search data attached to them, so I stay pretty high level. Nope, those are pulsed waves, so here we go. So a lot of these are more atmospheric. Here we go. A little closer. And just because I have no self-control, I think I'm gonna use both of these. I'm actually gonna just drag my work from here over to here. Now we'll keep uber loud over here, and we'll move our compressor over. So yeah, this is pretty junky, but we're off to a good start. For me, this kind of stuff is just adding more and more detail and then kind of going back and massaging it, you know, from a higher level. I go and add some in-cabin sounds. And so some of the in-cabin stuff, if I can find my, oh dear God, where'd it go? Okay. Okay. I thought some creaking lanterns would be good. Maybe a fireplace, just to get, you know, it could also translate as a candle or a lantern, some kind of source of warmth or light in the room. So I'm actually going to go into the nebulous folder because I pulled a bunch of lantern assets. And so kind of, I think the motivation would just be to have something perhaps swinging, like if we go back to the image, there's hanging lanterns. So we're going to go with that. This is one point of irritation for me, so I'm going to keep going back in here and keep changing or updating like groups of sounds to certain colors so I can actually quickly tell where I'm working, kind of agnostic what the color is, because Reaper is kind of a chaotic interface for coloring tracks. So let's go and grab our swinging lanterns. And this one, I'll just for, you know, to get us started, I'm going to loop it. Just to kind of hear if we're in the right zone. I'm going to throw some limiters on these guys just so I don't keep seeing red out of the corner of my eyes. Actually gonna go make it a compressor. It's fine. It's good enough for now. You need more, my friend. I'll just crush it a little bit. It's kind of lazy, but okay, so I know that this is clearly way too much, so I'm just gonna kind of just copy a few of these so we're not hearing it perpetually. So I'm gonna copy over cabin verb. So we're getting there with those. So I'm going to do something a little interesting with these. So I'm going to change the, so the way the reverbs are set up is they're set up on subgroups. So, or I'm sorry, aux sends. And so whenever I apply that to a channel, you get kind of two, I don't know if you'd call them methods, post fader and then pre fader. So post fader being that when you turn down the volume of the track, it's going to turn down the volume of your reverb as well as your source. Whereas pre fader, it'll turn down the volume of your source, but it's going to not change the volume on your reverb. So what you'll be left with is something sounding further away in the room. So I default to that, especially for Foley and effects. It may not be necessary on, you know, larger ambient sounds, but it's really helpful on those things just to kind of make them feel like they're deeper in the space. So kind of what you're doing is just adding kind of layers to your ambience. So I'm going to turn up the cabin verb. See, if you're, and I'm not entirely aware of the quality of the stream, but that should start sounding like it's across the room. Will be extra special. Let's put this one on the right, and then I'm gonna duplicate this. Whoops, hello. And then we're gonna offset these, and because we're predictable, oh, so sorry. We want to pan the lantern tracks, not our subgroup. So we have some on the right, and we have some on the left. He's surrounded by lanterns. And I'm going to kind of, just to add some variety so it's not the same sound every time. And really, this is just to kind of establish things in the room and give you a sense of being in a space. We don't need to have them so close together. What?
Noise reduction is cutting it out.
Oh, let me make sure. Hang on. Let me go into my settings and make sure those are still all turned off, because Discord likes to oh. Hmm? Wonderful. Thank you, Discord. This is one of those things. Okay. Let me make sure the Vocal Banana audio filters. No? It should.
Probably Discord.
Yeah, it's Discord.
Now we know we can game on the ships.
Okay, well. Automatic gain control, none noise, possibly echo cancellation might be causing it. Voice processing. Okay, well, we might be dealing with an it is what it is situation. Okay, and I already know that one of the things that I'm liking, but it's definitely too persistent, is these footsteps. So I'm gonna just get okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and add some panning automations here. This might be a situation where there is an easier way to do this in Reaper that I am not aware of. But for the sake of pan, so here. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just gonna do it using automations. So I'm gonna just make an automation point left and right, just to kind of create the illusion of the footsteps moving from left to right overhead. And with this broke up, you know, it definitely sounds a little more subtle, which is probably a really good thing because they were really persistent. But I do think they should be a little longer a piece. Whoops. Hello, friend.
Sivan shut up.
Cool. Hey, Sivan. Cool. Okay. So, sorry, I had to kind of just get that out of the way because those footsteps were making me crazy. Okay, so I'm just gonna minimize those for now. Let's go back up to our in-cabin sounds. Cool. I'm just gonna make a bunch of these because I'm gonna use them. So let's go back to our lanterns. And so these are just, again, placing things within the scene. And that one's a little too much. Let's see what if I have. There has to be a swing or a creak. That's funny. This is actually pulling a complete split of a lanternscape I already made. To cheat or not to cheat?
To cheat.
Yeah, I mean they sound lanterny, but probably a little more persistent than I was wanting. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just kind of, just because these aren't going anywhere, you know, let's just see what happens. I'll just throw them on this side of the deck and then see if it's something that I'm happy with, and then if not, it's not the worst. I still feel like those are implying probably too many lanterns. So let's go back to our kind of original idea. There we go. And these were actually swing set sounds I'd pulled. And they're pretty useful. Hello, mono track. I can live with that. I like this because it's not like aggressive, like, you know, something that's just swinging with reckless abandon. They're just little things that are kind of moving with the kind of ebb and flow of the ship. And I think it's the kind of thing, if you were to kind of really get into it, you can kind of picture the ship moving, and you might want to do a thing where, you know, every 3 seconds or so, ship lulls to the left, you know, then we'll have a left creak. You know, every 3 seconds, the ship kind of lulls to the right, you know. Um, there might be some things like that to consider here, and we'll just kind of, since we have the groundwork laid for that kind of work, we'll just do it. It may be a little corny, but we're gonna put some other things in the room, so it's probably gonna be detail loss. So I'm gonna just make a few more tracks, and we're gonna load these with a few other elements. So, so we had, kind of going back to the image, some glassware, coins in a treasure chest was kind of Jess's idea. I might come back to that because I'm probably going to want to wrap this up in the next half hour or so. If there's extra time, I might do a treasure chest thing. But for the sake of just laying the foundation for this, let's look at doing a fireplace. I couldn't tell you if cabins on boats have fireplaces, but the image does have fire, so let's just kind of go with it. Fireplace. And it's like the kind of thing where we don't have to be 100% realistic. We just need to make a feeling. For this, I'm gonna loop it the whole time, and I'm gonna make it a little further away in the space. And this is really kind of one situation where, like, for all these in-cabin sounds, I'm running it off of one reverb, but I would probably want to put that fireplace even deeper into the space. And so I might, if I was doing this in real life, I might have a different reverb subgroup on all these things so I can control them individually. But I think for the sake of doing this right now, that's a little much. So we'll leave it as it is. But I am going to throw let me just listen. Let's put the fire on the right. And I'm just going to make a little loopy section here. And I apologize if some of this is going away to the noise reduction. I have to get that figured out. So I'm gonna get into my EQ. So the fire kind of has a crackle and kind of a rumble. So we want to kind of take out a little bit of the crackle. I'm going to call that a high shell, just to kind of make it a little less prominent in the room. There we go. It's sounding a little more realistic. Okay. So we have our fireplace. Let's go ahead and make some. I'm going to search for glassware. And Sivan, I know you're coming in late, and I talked about sourcing some of the sound effects. If you have any questions, just let me know. But that's not something I'm going to get into heavily. I just kind of pointed a few sources where you can pull sound effects. But I'm, for the most part, just going on libraries I've already collected for time. And so I think what I'm going to do, just to be kind of sloppy about this, is just kind of go through and add a few, just like an array of little clinks and stuff like that to kind of imply that there might be something on the table that's kind of in motion with the boat that might be, you know, creating a little bit of clatter. But we're not really going for, unless we want at this point make the jump to saying, hey, there's someone in this room doing something, then, you know, what the hell, sure, yeah, Captain Bob is sitting there doing his thing. Let's just add a Captain Bob. Okay, so I'm gonna make a couple more tracks because Captain Bob's gonna need some, he's gonna need some things. Noted. Okay. So cool. We got a little clink sound. Captain Bob's getting his drink on. Just some little details like that, you know, just little things to kind of smatter in. I'm gonna go ahead and commit this to being, let's see how much. Yeah, that's about right. We'll just make this like a, no, we'll make this like a 30-second ish kind of loop, just because that seems about the limits of what we got. I'm still kind of mad at these boat hole sounds. So I think I might be what you would call kind of a vengeful sound designer. I can't really move past things that are giving me problems. Let's just add a higher ratio to these boat hole clinks. Add a little more compression to them. Okay. So back to Captain Bob. Just to kind of pull a few more glassware kind of sounds. This is stereo. And we'll spread that out so Captain Bob isn't just like making toast for 30 seconds. We have a sip and swallow. So let's add a pour. So Captain Bob's pulling another drink. Whoop, that's a downpour. Let's go back up here. Wrong. Wrong type of pour. Ooh, we got some drinking. Let's pull in some drinking. Just, wow, this man has no self-control. So a few components of this left that I need to find. Okay. Yeah, you set that down, Captain Bob. Some of these are a little aggressive. So I'm actually gonna make another track. So here's our Captain Bob stuff, and I'm gonna make a group for him. Call him Captain. Whoops. Captain Bob. And I'm actually gonna, just for funsies, just kind of pan him a little bit. So he's not dead center in the room. And let's give him a few more tracks. I'm doing my best here to put each sound on a separate track, which is not going to be part of a lot of people's workflow. This keeps my brain organized. That way, if I put something specific grouped with another sound, I really like to know where to find it. So like here, I kind of miff that up, and Reaper doesn't really care, and I should probably care a little less, but whatever. Cool. Well, that's one thing I'm trying to find. Since I know I have some better pour. No. So sorry. Here we go. Here's our wine fill. Whoa. Let's just... And we're also gonna throw an EQ on there. Just kind of, again, really sloppily. We're just gonna kind of take out some of the bass on that one because that sounds very close to us. And then I'm gonna just reduce the volume of it. Or the gain. Actually, no, sorry. I'm gonna keep up the gain and reduce the channel volume so it interacts with the reverb. There we go. There we have it. There's Captain Bob. And then just maybe for another fun kind of element. If I really wanted to get into it, I could have him, I'll copy this sitting down effect so it can be, you know, as if he poured it and then set the bottle down. And let's just space all that out a little bit more. And we're actually gonna pull that down a little bit more. As you can see, a lot of these are clippings, so I'm gonna actually just throw, could put this here. I'm gonna throw the compressor on the individual channels in this instance so I can just have a little more control. If I want it. I'm not gonna get that granular right now, but that's totally something I would do. Cool. So there we have a Captain Bob, and then the other thing I'll kind of add is Captain Bob. One of the elements I actually had on my original list of things to put in the cabin was paper rolls and stuff like that. So I think this might actually be an opportunity, having Captain Bob taking notes or writing stuff down. So let's go ahead and just go with that and actually have a couple good pencil scribbles. So we'll just start dropping those in. So he's writing things down and getting his drink on. And let's just... That's a very short writing thing. Hello. Whoa, he's really going to town. Karen really made him mad. It's a little too quiet. And I'm just gonna copy and paste that. Just to add some variety on these, since these sound effects are very similar, I'll just go ahead and use this really kind of crazy one and just see how it compares. So let's not do that. Okay. I am so bummed about this noise reduction thing. It's really making me mad.
Speaker on the bottom right.
Say what?
The menu is there. There's a menu here.
In, are you talking about in Discord or Reaper?
In Discord.
Okay. Yeah, it eludes me. I think it might be one of those things where, I mean, right now y'all seem to be vibing right now, so I think I'll just have to, it's something we'll have to figure out as we do more of these, because I know sound design's gonna have a lot of nuance that gets lost in streaming just by the nature of what it is. But I think I'll throw a progress thing. Cool. Let me just get this back down to 30 seconds. And just to ensure that it stays that way, I'm just gonna kill these. Anything beyond that. And just so I'm just gonna throw this on my desktop for now. I'm just gonna quickly kick this out and throw it into the chat, so that way you can kind of compare it against what you're hearing through your streaming service. Oh, hello. Nope, that's just good. Sorry. So sorry. Cool. So I'm just going to click on a MP3 so you can kind of roughly hear it. And this hasn't been obviously mastered or leveled or anything. This is just where we are.
Yes.
Cool. So that's just kind of where we are. Just so you can hear it for comparison's sake. Because I have no idea what noise reduction is doing to any of this. It might also be something that can be controlled on the user end, which is YouTube's usually better for this kind of stuff. But anyway, I think we're almost done for what we're going to do tonight. It might be the kind of thing we might continue it later if I feel like it. Okay, so we have our, just for the sake of me not being lost, let's make Captain Bob pink. And then everything else is fine. Okay, so other in-cabin elements that we kind of had were some coins, right? Clink and clinking of coins. So let me see what I have in that kind of direction. Yeah, that sounds kind of like more of a personal coin sound, and I kind of like it. Let's just throw it in our Captain Bob. Because he's... Whoa, hello. Sorry. Here you are. Because he's counting his money. So maybe what he's doing here is the bookkeeping. Hmm? This is accountant Bob.
Accountant.
Yeah, cool. We got them where this might be the same. Let's say money. No, not money. Let's kind of let's resort to our did I close it? Great. Let's go back to Envato and I will see what kind of counting money. Oops, let's say actually let's say coins, because I feel like the more specific you get on here, the less results you get. There's some metal elements in here that we don't really want. Whoa.
Not hearing those.
These are, that's fine. These are coming through the browser, so they're not patched. Let me see if I can add on wood. Hey, there we go. Yeah, he is definitely the accountant. Whoops, where are we? And I'm pretty sloppy when I go through these, and if I just kind of quickly go through them, I'll grab anything that sounds like vaguely relevant to what I'm doing, because I don't really have time to scrutinize everything. It's like one click. If I hear a split second of something, I usually know if it's in the neighborhood. If it's not in the neighborhood, I move on. If it's in the neighborhood, I just pull it. So I'm just going to look for a couple more things while I'm here. That's pretty cool. So it's like just you might be looking for something specific sometimes, but sometimes with ambience you don't really know what you're looking for, because you're just kind of like building textures. So something surprising might come up and you just don't really know what it is, but you don't really want to spend a lot of time here. Mostly because you can spend a crap ton of time in these libraries. And if you listen to everything once, I mean, cool. If that's a hobby of yours, I think it might be a hobby of Magnus's, but at least if you leave some things to future searches, you might not feel like these are so limited. Okay, well, I feel like I've gotten a few of these that are okay. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, so let's just go with what I've found. And I'm gonna conversation folder. And usually I wouldn't be doing this part of it, but it's kind of fun to see what the search part of the process looks like. Okay, so we're gonna go back into our sound effects, and so I kind of got this treasure chesty kind of sound. And then I also found kind of this large coins sound. So it kind of sounds like rummaging through like a coin box or something. And let's move this drink he has here. Cool. Cool. Let's see what I'm missing, because I want to wrap this up by 9. So we've done a pretty good job. We can keep going on this for sure, but I think there's a point where you've done more than you really need to, and you're not really adding to what you're making by putting in more time. So let's just assume we're close to that point. I wanted to find some paper sounds, just to kind of sound like some paper rolls and stuff like that in the space. And the last thing I'm going to do after this is I'm going to throw just a mastering kind of component on it, just to kind of smush it all together and turn it to an output level. And then I'll just throw it in the chat for you guys to listen to and appreciate. And then we can possibly come back to this project later if we feel like we want to expand on it. Okay. So I am looking for a paper roll. So here we go. So I think the kind of paper we're going for is not that modern. So either something that sounds like a paper roll or an old book. And these are frankly not doing it for me. So we'll just kind of go as some page turns, I think, and call it a day. That's a weird place for a page turn, though. So let's throw that before the writing. This is why I don't want to put tracks, sounds, different sounds on one track, because then I can pretty identify where the writing sounds actually are. So that's kind of what you want, is to actually be able to know where you are. And let's just give that some room. Not too bad. Okay, so we got Captain Bob. I'm gonna just kill these tracks because we're not gonna use them. And we don't really need these tracks. I didn't find any sound, like any super big designed element and kind of just an example of what that means. Let me just kind of look to like something like these are construction kits. We don't, here we go, design kit. You kind of these stingers or these processed elements like that. You don't really want to put in a group of sounds that are really delicate. They're not bad, but they're not always useful as, you know, something that's part of an ambience, unless you're making something that's like, you know, really busy, like, and big, like a spaceport or an urban scene or something like that. So since we didn't use any of those, we'll just go ahead and delete that subgroup as well. Cool. So we have, now that kind of have all these. I'm going to go and call the in-cabin sounds, or make it all one color. And I have to do this for my brain just so I can kind of differentiate certain things. So I'll make all the Captain Bobs a different color. And you can obviously, I'm just hitting random every time. There's a way to make it custom so you can code your workflow, your color code your workflow a lot easier. Cool. So those are kind of the basics for at least laying the project out. So I'm gonna just collapse these down a little bit. So I added quite a few tracks for this little ambience, which is cool. So let me just do one last thing on our master channel. I'm gonna throw, this could be done with a basic compressor. There are these mastering tools that kind of make your life a little bit easier. Now, let's just do with basic compressor, just to not be too fancy about it. But basically what I'm looking at, we'll just actually, I'll do the fancy thing because it has the settings I need. Fancy thing being Ozone. And what this does, and I don't have any examples on hand of cheaper versions of what this does, unfortunately. Kind of the thing we're looking for is a maximizer, which is that you can actually normalize the output to, you know, -16 or 14 LUFS. So what this is going to do, it's going to listen to everything that we've made and turn it to kind of the correct output volume. So I'm just going to let this cook on here. I mean, you can just, it could be as simple as bringing up the overall volume on your output to kind of an output level and using compressors through your project to, you know, make sure you're not, and limiters to make sure you're not going over a certain dB threshold. But this is just fast. So, and this has a few other bells and whistles in it that we'll kind of use. And one of the things it can do is actually use machine learning to analyze your audio and make its recommendations based on your audio. And sometimes it works and sometimes it turns your stuff into mud and turns things into kind of the worst version of itself, but for the most part it's pretty good. And cool, I'll just accept its settings, and obviously overall it's just gonna sound louder now. The other thing I'm going to do here, and this is most likely not going to be something you can hear just with the amount of noise reduction I suspect is going on your end, is to use this thing called an imager. And it's just kind of like a stereo widening tool that just kind of, for lack of a better word, spreads out the mix so it sounds wider. That doesn't really make too much sense, but that's literally kind of like what it does. If you watch this image, you can kind of see it going from being fairly centered to, and it uses all kinds of robot evil to do this. So I'm going to export this so you can hear it. But this is probably, let me just play this through again for my sake, because I might make Captain Bob a little quieter. Let's bring Captain Bob down. He's not really the center of the story. Let's take a look at his coin sounds. Cool. I'll just punch this out. And I think we'll call it a day. It's 9 p.m. my time. Progress 2. Oh, hi, Nathan. Nathan showed up in time for the robot evil. Cool.
Robots.
What?
Robots.
Robots. Cool. Cool. I just threw that mix in the chat so you guys can listen to it without the question of what Discord is doing to it. Yeah, so hopefully that kind of, I know this is really quick and dirty, but I really just kind of wanted for myself to play around with this and kind of see what learnings were, good to distill down how to, convey better, or what would be really helpful to talk about next time. But yeah, I might come back to this and keep it. Maybe this is just the whole. Maybe we move to where we can use a few more of those subgroups I started to kind of make and get into. Maybe we're following someone from a cabin to the deck. Just by kind of pulling those outside deck elements, which is where we started. That work is already kind of being laid. So if I wanted to go outside, with whoever character might be in this scene, those components are already built, and it's just a matter of adjusting your high cut and low cut to kind of utilize them depending on where your character is, and it just creates an extra layer to the ambience. But yeah, if there's anything else you guys can think of that you probably would have liked to see, or if you want me to expand on this, just let me know. I'll be around in the chat and stuff for a bit. But if there's no immediate questions, then I'm gonna shut her down. Bueller. What? Oh, wait. Sorry. Yeah, Audacity is, I'm not super familiar with Audacity. Like, it hasn't been in my, I don't want to say like I haven't seen the value of taking the time to learn it. It is useful, and it has a lot of base tools. Like, if I need to pop in and record something, I'll usually just do that. But it's missing so many tools that like I feel like I come in by default wanting to just like, okay, I'm going to think about large canvas and then pull out the parts that I don't need, as I figured I don't need them. Yeah. But yeah, Reaper is really cool. I highly recommend it. Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing though. So Reaper, you can technically download, and this is like, I don't want to say it's like illegal. Yeah, see, quote unquote free. You can actually download it and learn it for free. And it's not really until you get to where you're doing it, for serious, or commercially, you're to where, kind of get that guilt factor in the back of your head. Like you can download a trial. I want to say it's a long trial too, like 60 days or something like that.
It goes on forever.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like it doesn't stop you past that threshold. So you can technically still use it. It'll just like yell at you when you open it. Yeah, so you could technically download it and mix an entire thing, and I mean, it's going to be down to everyone's kind of like moral compass, whether, where, when you drop the $70 on Reaper. But the cool thing is it's lifetime, so it's like you pay that, is it 60 or $70 or something for, once, and then you're using it perpetually. So I'm gonna take a drink of water. Yeah, I mean, and Ed also has some really helpful videos about like opening it up for the first time and learning how to navigate it. Like nothing that's really intricate or getting into the guts and inner workings of how it works. It's just really basic. Like I've opened the program, and this is where the tools are that make you competent enough to be dangerous with it. And so I think they're in the server somewhere, so we'll have to tag you or something in those. But it's the kind of thing where like I've kind of used it here in a way that a lot of people aren't going to use it, frankly. And you don't have to do anything even as complicated as what I did, but it's really intuitive and great for grouping like sounds in folders, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that answered your question. I've never used Cakewalk. I don't actually know what it is or much about it. I know, huh?
It's old school. Yeah, Cakewalk's really old.
You have a microphone, you turkey.
Oh my. Cakewalk's really old. That's all I got to say. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's so many music creations like DAWs and like Cubase is another one. I hear of people bringing them up, like a bunch of different ones all the time that I've never used or looked at, mostly because they're music based. So they're just not. Yeah, Sonar. Is that what Joseph uses? That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Studio, Fruity Loops, a lot of weird ones.
Yeah, Fruity. I can't remember what it is. I don't think it's Sonar that Joseph uses, or maybe it is Sonar. I don't know. There's a lot of them. And I think a lot of them are going to have the same kind of functionality and capability when it comes to adding tracks and how some of the routing and stuff works. But you can get by. You can go a long way without doing any of the routing or advanced things, as long as you can add the tracks, add some basic effects and reverb and stuff like that. but I think it's the kind of thing where you'd really have to do a demo that stops from the top and goes through everything. Which could be something we do down the road. You can ask questions anytime. It's like we're here in the server. I'm going to actually record this whole thing, so I'll throw it up in some shape, way, or form. So we're not going anywhere, and I want to do more of these, so hopefully get into a better rhythm of it. Well, that's it. If you guys don't have any other main questions, I'm going to hop off. 3, whoop. I see you typing. Yeah, no problem at all. I'm trying to get in a better habit of doing it, so hopefully there'll be more of these. Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you guys for popping in and hanging out. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Sweet.
Cool. That was okay.
Oh, that was great.
You need to do a few things.
I think it's funny because Yvonne was like, I have no idea what's going on. So, but yeah. I think she's the perfect place for my instruction video because it's like really, all the way from the top, which is something that's generally missing.
It went okay, right? It sounded okay.
I thought it was super fun, but I realized something about it is it starts out really simple. And it's like, oh, this isn't going to be that interesting. And then it starts getting more and more decked out. And it's like the process is pretty fast. And it's like, oh my God, it's like actually quite sophisticated. So the thing is, like, I was commenting in the chat on what you were doing so that the things were visible. But, I mean, again, there wasn't really a very big audience. But the thing is, in the chat, like, you're using the, not the inspector, what's that called?
The browser here?
The thing on the right.
Yeah.
And I just said that's the keys to do it and what it's, like why it's cool. So there's like, I was adding those.